Welcome to the Magna AI podcast, where we sit down with principals, district leaders, and instructional innovators who are reshaping what's possible in the classroom with a little help from AI. Together, we explore how school leaders are using smart tools and bold ideas to support teachers, personalize learning, and improve outcomes for every student. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Magna AI podcast. And today we have Paul Knapstein with us. And Paul has been an experienced educator, having held various positions from teacher to an administrator and so on. Welcome, Paul. Do you want to briefly talk about your experience and what brought you to this journey?
Sure. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate your time. As I said, this is my 33rd year in education in some capacity, be it teacher or administrator. Primarily, I've been in a Catholic education background. This is my 25th year in a Catholic school. You know, I think when I was in college, I don't know that I really thought of education as what I wanted to do, but I had two parents who had been teachers at some point in their lives. And I saw that, you know, the calling for me initially to be with young people was through athletics. And when I realized that was just kind of a bonus, what the true gift is really, what our mission as educators is to make sure we enable students to be the best versions of themselves. That's when I kind of really understood my journey and what I was doing. So throughout my process and really over the last, I'd say 5 years, I would say I've had an epiphany I constantly look at how we can support our teachers to give our students the best shot at actually learning.
Excellent. So, yeah, I think that's an amazing thing that to actually make that journey from like a teacher in the classroom to actually helping and supporting teachers as a leader. So, Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about what is the biggest difference that you're seeing, like from leading in the classroom versus leading from like principal's office where you are today?
In my experience, when you're in the classroom, you're obviously, I won't use a military term, but you're kind of in the trenches. You know what I mean? You're in there with the students daily, and I always say to our faculty, a teacher has the most difficult job in the world because they may have 10 or they might have 25, whatever students in a classroom who all learn differently, but they have to find a way to connect with them, to motivate them, and to basically give them the tools they need to be successful. So they're doing that every day in their classroom. What we do on the administrative side, obviously, is try to find ways to support them because Doc, I don't know when you started teaching, but my first year of teaching was in 1993. And I can tell you, we didn't think, and I know when I was a student, we didn't think about differentiated instruction. We didn't think about how do we reach a student, through short videos or through hands-on experiences. It was just the Socratic method of reading and then being lectured. So trying to find ways to make sure teachers don't really burn out quickly, to give them the support they need to help, find all these different ways of to reach their students. That's kind of what we look at our job on this side to do is to be a true support for them.
Oh, yeah. Cool. And what would be like one insight from being a teacher that you would wish more administrators understood?
Well, I think for me, I can speak for myself as an administrator. We don't live in a vacuum, and teachers don't either. And teachers, what may not be a priority for me is a priority for them. So trying to find ways to realize what a teacher sees every day, if, through numbers of students, or if it's, one child is not really turning in assignments or whatever the case may be, that may not be the biggest priority on my plate. It is the biggest priority to them. And how do I find ways to support them and help them deal with that process?
Great. So let's move to a little bit about your school and what things that you're doing over there. And looks like St. Patrick achieved blue ribbon status and has been consistently ranking as Mississippi's top Catholic high school. So there must be some systematic things that you are doing, which it has led to this status. Would you like to share what approaches you feel have contributed to this success?
Well, the first part of it is, we're a mission driven school. Obviously, we're a Catholic school that I've found that if we're true to what we say we're doing, it makes a better environment for everybody. So primarily we put the mission of teaching young people about their Catholic faith and giving them the opportunity to experience that is first and foremost in everything we do. From there, we have reinstituted a lot of programs here. The things I'm the most excited about for a while, this is my third year at St. Patrick. Before I came here, the school had looked at some different concepts and how to schedule. It was almost essentially open enrollment. So what I mean by that is the only two disciplines that followed any type of scope and sequence were theology and English. Mm-hmm. Everything else was, you could take, basically they would let people take they took math classes early, or they took different classes. They didn't follow a normal scope, at least what I was accustomed to. And history classes, they jumped around. So in science classes, we had some kids taking 3 sciences and no social studies, and it just it didn't track well. I think for a young person, it's very difficult for them to just specialize in one thing. We really want to stimulate their brain in different ways. So we reestablished a true scope and sequence. Because we are a 7 through 12 school, it's somewhat interesting, but we've stuck to that over the last 3 years. We also added our advanced placement courses back. They hadn't had those for a few years. We've seen tremendous growth through that department. And also we added back honors classes. So we've given, without tracking, but we've done some ability grouping to give students who have similar interests the opportunity to be successful in class, and also really to give our teachers a little bit of a break to try to teach kids in one setting that had such a wide array of I wouldn't say ability, but has a wide array of interest in each subject. So we've done a lot of things to kind of give structure back to our academic program, and we've seen a lot of success through that. This year, we've also added, we call it our St. Joseph of Cupertino program. It's is a resource program for students with diagnosed learning differences to give them the support they need to help be successful in their academics journey as well. I know it's only, like I said, we've been in school a week, but we've already seen, I'm sure you've dealt with this. Students, they felt like there'd be a stigma going into this program. It's quite to the contrary. They're already excited about learning, are excited about the organizational skills they're acquiring and the support they're getting. So it's having the desired effect already in our program.
Great. Yeah, it's amazing that you've been able to actually put in new programs and be able to scale them and keep the success up there, because like what you talked about, advanced placement and honors, these are not easy programs to actually implement and scale. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like what kind of feedback mechanisms that you use to make sure that students are getting feedback. Not only students are getting feedback, but then you are also getting feedback in time to make sure that the programs are on track for success.
Great. That's a great question. And data is everything we need in the 21st century. We've played around with a couple of different data collection systems. There's one called Mastery Connect. We were testing in to try to gather, make sure we were hitting right, our assessments were hitting the mark and making sure our instruction was hitting the mark where it needed to do. We also have done some student surveys, we've also, we've done the surveys. One of the things I found the most interesting, obviously as an independent school, or as a Catholic school, one of our accreditations is through Cognia. And we use the Elliott assessment with all of our teachers to see the student engagement in each class. And we kind of tailor our faculty, our in class, or excuse me, our visits when we do our observations towards that instrument. And we use the feedback with them and share it with them. Teachers, as you know, every teacher gets nervous when they're being assessed themselves. And then, I would say rightfully so. That's because they are perfectionists in a lot of ways. But we also make sure that faculty understands the Elliott and the assessments we do is not really it doesn't impact their employment. Rather, it's a way to make sure we're hitting instruction to assist them to find the right ways to reach our students. So we use it as a positive tool as opposed to any type of fear tactic.
Great. Are there any other indicators beyond like test scores that you use to tell you like the systems are working?
Yes, I think we do. Like I said, I don't want to say it's perception, but I can tell from just the interactions we have with students because of, we are concentrating on being more hands-on and being more having more individual engagement in class, seeing students' confidence, frankly, to speak to others or speak in front of a group or to share their information. We have not implemented this yet, but I always get confused. So I'm sorry. Last year's 9th grade class. So they're the class of 24, 25, 25, 26. I think 2028. When they are seniors, they will be the first class we do that will go through a capstone project. And we believe that capstone, we're obviously we didn't come up with a capstone, but we're tailoring it to where every senior will be participating in this program. We will match them up with a mentor and whatever they choose. We're trying to make it as, individual as possible. So if someone wants to write a one-person play and perform it, that would be their public performance. If someone's interested in engineering and they want to build a bridge, anything they want to do, we want to go through that process and help them. I really believe that's going to show a lot of that. We'll get a lot of information through that as we keep going. And that's one of the things to see how students are actually actively engaged in learning and how they're, and they're enjoying it here.
Yeah, these extracurriculars and project-based learning play such an important role on top of like the standardized tests and so on. That's great to see. Cool. So let's now move to a little bit about technology and assessment integration. We saw that you implemented PowerSchool and Schoology across your school. What's your philosophy when you are trying to choose an educational technology?
I don't have some of that is, that's a great question. I wish I had a better answer for you. We are not an independent part of that. We're part of the diocese that we would work together. And I believe at the high school level, we have 5 different Catholic high schools in our diocese that we would evaluate instruments or technology together and make a decision. A lot of that was in place before I was here, but just from a user standpoint, faculties, whenever we look at these instruments, we've looked at some different ones or anything for that matter, if it's a survey system or whatever else, I always try to look for things that we have more professional development available when we get it, because we have teachers who are 22, we have teachers who are 70. So, they have a different expectation and ability with technology. So any program we want to install, we really want the support from the group we get it from, because, it's such a wide array of people's ability to master that. We focus on, that's a very key part of it for me, is trying to see what type of professional development, what type of support we have.
Nice. So, and as we talked about your school's performance, right? Essentially being able to give students feedback in time, we've seen like really correlates with their performance. So, can you talk about how actually you might be using any tools or how if you have any efforts, and because like teachers are also overloaded with the amount of feedback that they have to give, right? So if there is something that you're doing to actually improve that feedback cycle.
I don't know, to be honest with you. We use Canvas, and what I've found, like a lot of times, we don't require our teachers to test in Canvas either, but a lot do, and that immediate grading part of it, I think, does help. Mm-hmm. The other thing that Canvas does well, in my opinion, is we can set it up to where they won't release the grades till everything is graded. So from that part of it, it kind of helps. The other thing we've done that we've gone back kind of old school a little bit is we create a test calendar for our school. So that way teachers and students alike know that, hey, if this, and it really helps. What I've seen is the students who are in our more challenging curriculum in our AP classes, because if the juniors know they have three tests on Wednesday, they can't get that fourth one. So it helps our teachers kind of plan out their tests better. And then also, it's a relief to the students. And then teachers, I guess it doesn't necessarily impact the teachers from grading, but students are inundated all at once with 4 different grades, or they're waiting for whatever, going forward. We also we kind of work with our teachers about a realistic amount of time per assessment. And if, and to be frank, don't schedule, if you're the English teacher, don't have all 6 of your sections doing the research paper at the same time, because that's just going to slow down the process there.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And coming to a bit to the elephant in the room, essentially, with the AI actually being there, what are you seeing in terms of how things are changing from like both student and teacher perspective?
I'll be honest. At first, we've used different things, from a standpoint of using AI in a negative way to write research, but I think we're coming around to flipping to how the positives to capitalize on AI. And what I'll use a non-school reference for that. My wife works in the insurance industry, and her group, they're using AI to do proposals, to do to formulate thoughts, and it's really, very, very beneficial. What I know too is now AP is saying how for AP classes, what's the appropriate way to use AI in your in your coursework. So we haven't really caught up to that part yet either. We're still in the learning process of how to do it, and not just worry about, how is this plagiarism how can we benefit from this? So we're kind of in the middle of that road, to be quite honest with you, just starting, and we added AP seminar this year for our sophomores in the English, and that's one of the topics that they're hitting on, as we speak.
Yeah. Essentially, I think but got a lot of bad rap early on with plagiarism and so on. I mean those things will continue to be there, but given that it's such a powerful technology and can really help, definitely.
And what I've seen too is if we give a student parameters that are clear, and they can use they can use AI to be extremely beneficial. And if we just say, hey, go use it, then we're setting them up to fail. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You hit the nail there. Nice. So now, let's talk a little bit about teacher support and their professional development. As you know, teacher burnout is a major concern nationally, I would say even globally. So how do you maintain high performance among teachers while supporting their well-being?
So I don't know if I really fully appreciated this until after COVID, and when I was really in a position of leadership to start to be involved in completely involved in the hiring process. And after COVID, job applicants have gone way down, especially in our field. So anything that, we're looking, it's difficult to attract a teacher at this point, but 2, you have to coach you have to make sure the ones you have the support and the ability to be successful. One of the things that we've started, especially since I've been here, we try to make sure teachers don't have too many preps. That's the first thing. Like if you're, in a department, since we have 6 grades in our core subjects, we want to have 6 teachers. So essentially one teacher would have, 9th grade, his English, then 1 10th, and so on and so forth. So we don't want them to jump around and have too many preps, and I could, there's an argument. Some people, if you're the junior English teacher, you could have honors, you could have college prep, and you could have AP. In my opinion, that's really 2 preps, because AP is actually different than your English, but honors and college prep, that's using you're using different assessments, but it's really, in my opinion, it's not a different prep. So trying to knock down the number of preps is one. And also 2, making sure that teachers have the appropriate amount of rest time. I mean, and not try to over inundate them with other responsibilities. One of the things we always, everybody that's worked in secondary education, they taught, then they probably were the moderator for a club, and they had lunch duty, and they had whatever else the case may be, or they had to do the gate after school for whatever. We've broken away from that model in this regard. We don't require people to have extra duties. Now, obviously, they're going to have a morning duty or a lunch duty from a liability and supervision standpoint. But if you don't want to coach, that's fine. If you don't really want to do a club, that's fine. If you do, we'll try to give you a stipend to make sure that you're passionate about it. That's one of the things I've seen over time is schools that just keep going more and more and more and more. Those teachers, while they're gung ho, they get tired quicker and quicker and quicker. So we want to make sure they can recharge as well.
Yep. Yeah, it takes a lot to actually have the system in place to make sure you're helping teachers and supporting them. So typically, there is a high churn rate amongst teachers, right? And given that you have such a successful program, how do you maintain those high standards when you have high churn rate, or maybe you don't? So maybe you can talk about how you're addressing that.
I think that's part of. I think part of that is divine intervention. To be honest with you, if we have teacher turnover, I think a lot of times we are just apt to find the first qualified candidate, or quote unquote qualified candidate we can, and just go with it. I've found a way to, because of the mission aspect of our school, to try to slow that process down, and to as long as long as we find the right person eventually and we give them ample time to prepare for the next school year, we don't have to have every position filled by February 1st for the next school year. So we've become somewhat more selective in that regard, but also every interview we do is a conversation. I had a former boss that I don't really frankly know how he got away with this, but it was genius. If we had a couple candidates that wanted the job, he would have them come in and teach a guest lesson in a class. And I really don't, again, I never really asked how he did it, but it was amazing. And you saw their rapport in the classroom with students. And yes, while it was kind of like being observed, it really gave you an insight into that person and what they would bring when they got there. We do that through conversations with myself. I never, if in the hiring process, it's never just me. If it's a bigger position, we will do a committee, but we'll also prepare the person. Hey, you're going to talk to 4 people today. Other than that, it's usually very informal where if we're looking to hire an English teacher, they'll meet with me, they'll meet with our assistant principals in some capacity, but then they're going to go talk to our director of instruction and curriculum instruction. We're going to let them kind of walk through the lunchroom to see kids and just see anything we can to just to make sure that our fit is right, that we're compatible with each other.
Yeah, that's so important. Right? We keep talking about technology as like one of the factors that is going to change education, but I also feel like that human factor in how teachers interact with students and mentor them, coach them, plays such an important role and is so crucial to the job of a teacher. So it's great to see that you're indexing on that. Mm, Now, even with like new teachers, right? Especially new teachers, and that you see like a lot of times teachers are leaving the profession altogether. How do you ensure like the if a new teacher is coming in, maybe don't have a length of experience behind them, that they're being supported and they're being set up for success?
We have, like law schools, I'm sure we have a mentoring program. When a new employee comes in, we're going to pair them with someone in a similar discipline that are probably the same discipline, but maybe just a different grade level. We also will do a couple different, check-ins. I don't ever, I'm the principal and I still don't like coming in my office. You know what I mean? Because it's, the stigma of, oh, the principal's office. But we'll do informal walkthroughs, and we'll just kind of check in. Hey, how are you doing today? We obviously look at lesson plans and try to, not try. We give instruction when we need to. We make work on that. The biggest thing I've found too with young people that, they get the technology. So introducing technology to them is nothing. It's the relationship part kind of we were talking about earlier, and classroom management is so, we're not authoritative in anything we do. That relationship part is big, and making sure that, but at the same time, young people throughout the history of education, they're intimidated by students because they're like the first time they're just turned loose in the classroom, and students are like, well, that's like my buddy, so trying to help them build that component of respect and also, accompaniment is important to how we do that. I wish I don't have a magic pill for that, but we make sure that we want to always have constant communication with new teachers, especially to let them know, hey, we're here for you. But also, hey, maybe we should look at doing it a different way if we need to, and move on from there.
Nice. Any words of advice to new teachers who are entering the system so that they can succeed?
Well, I always joke that it was a long time ago, but I liked my first year of teaching so much, I did it 2 years in a row, because I taught 1 year at a school. Then my wife and I got married and we moved to a new city. So I started a brand new school in year 2. So I had that first year experience back to back. I always tell them it's never as bad as you think it is. And there's always, if you're willing to ask for help, we're here for you. Because it's stressful at any level because of the just the interaction daily with students, and then the interaction with parents who are just as anxious as students a lot of times, and more so. So it's something to really support people through.
Great. Cool. So now let's move on to mission-driven leadership in practice. You stated that essentially, like the school is very mission-driven, so on. So how do you measure success in that spiritual formation alongside like academic achievement?
Well, that's another great question, and that's one of the things that I wish I'd have. There's no rubric to measure that one. It's more of how we see. One of the ways I measure it is how we see each other, how our students treating each other in the hallways. And I can tell you, this might be a weird way to quantify it, but over the last 3 years, our discipline referrals have gone down by 60%. And it's not like, no, our teachers aren't not reporting stuff. It's, we've seen a genuine increase in respect for each other and support for our students. We're about 73% Catholic, so we're not diverse from a theological sense. We are true to our mission there, but we do have diversity amongst our ethnic groups who are represented here. And we do not see disharmony there, which is something that is extremely important. And it's also, I think, I know because of our any faith does not discriminate. Faith is about belief in God, regardless of what you look like. So that has resonated with our students, and we've seen great improvement there. The same thing too with like service to the community is a big part of what we do as our school. And we've seen increases in service opportunities. We've seen our students take advantage of service opportunities, and their involvement in the community has really grown. So those are, I think, the lack of discipline not the lack of discipline, the improving in discipline, and then the willingness to serve others. We've seen that greatly.
Yeah, that 40% drop, that's nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, congratulations on that. So as you talked about diversity, right? It actually means obviously this is an amazing mission, and the fact that you talked about students, how they interact with each other, and especially at mission-driven schools, it inculcates that sense of community and so on. And at the same time, because of the diverse backgrounds, do you see any challenges with respect to actually communicating the mission to either like faculty or students while still maintaining like academic rigor?
Not really. That's one of the things that I think it's I'll address it from two sides, I guess. From the faculty side, and the diocese here has done a great job about instilling mission, or what our mission is, and building community there. We do a lot of in-service together to work on that and to make sure that we are kind of on the same page. And, we've had some turnover in our faculty, of course, like everyone else, but as we talked about earlier, we're going through a hiring process, or finding people who we believe are, mission driven has been really important to what we've done. And we instilled a different leadership style here as well. Like we have our leadership team for the school is essentially a mission team. And from there, we have all of our other administrative groupings after that. We have our academic side, we have our advancement side, we have our athletic side. We have, but basically, we start with our mission and how we make sure that everything flows from that to everybody else. So that has really kind of been eye-opening for me, and been really, I would say, rewarding and enriching. The same part for the students. We have some, one of the things that at least here where we live, I'm sure this is kind of a national thing. Kids like to get out of school early. So what I mean by that is, seniors want to go to school for a couple of periods and then go work or do whatever else. That's not what our mission is. So as we've gone through this process, our families, and our students, really, they see that, we're not just like every other school in this area. We are mission driven. We are St. Patrick Catholic High School, and this is what we believe, and this is what we do. It's different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just, we're not a public school, and we're not going to be one. We're equipped to build community and to do these certain things. And if some people aren't comfortable with that, if they maybe have transferred or whatever else, and I can understand that. But I think we are getting to the point where we're doing well about voicing and articulating who we are and what we do, and people are buying into that. So I feel good about that.
Very cool. Yeah, it's great to hear how you're handling all these things. So now, may you talk a little bit about like how the curriculum actually changed when it was initially focused on theology and English, and then adding these new curriculums and so on. So can you talk a little bit about how your mission actually influences potential decisions regarding like curriculum and assessment or student support?
Well, our mission is to make everybody the best, to give our students bring their personal relationship closer to God. We want to accompany them on that journey and help them. We want to give them opportunities to encounter God. We want to encourage that, and we want to be there to help them, support them. So nothing in that process limits what we can talk or teach. Quite to the contrary, anything we do, we should do to the best of our ability to elevate the student to be the best versions of themselves. So from a curriculum standpoint, we're not book burners. You know what I mean? We're not banning stuff. We will look at the world through our Catholic, social lens, but we're not afraid of topics, if that makes sense. And we're not going to skirt them. And we're going to give what we believe we're going to give students what we believe is going to help them, we're not, as they get out into the world and are prepared for college, which is what's our other primary goal.
Yeah. And totally, which is actually showing up in your scores and so on, right? So you're like really performing. So it looks like you're balancing both wonderfully. So
yes,
great job there. Any advice that you would like to give other school leaders who might be in like a similar position or trying to, with respect to managing institutional mission while adapting to changing educational demands?
I don't know that I'm great at giving advice, but I would say that what I've found through my education journey or through my vocation journey, how we want to call it, I don't ever the status. I wrote this down, and I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to use technology to find something I wrote when I had my thoughts here.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things, because we're going through a process with our our school advisory committee, where we're trying to make sure that they are, we share the same mission for what we're doing. And one of the things I put on ours is, dadgummit, I'm sorry.
No worries, take it.
Here it is. We talked about what is our vision for our community and our school. We went through this whole process, but one of the things I've kind of lived by is we are not, or the status quo is not acceptable. We always want to continually improve, and not just give lip service to it. And so I guess what I would say is I always look for ways to say yes. And if it fits our mission, how will this advance our students' development? How can we make that happen? I don't ever say, I'm sorry, we don't have money in the budget for that. Or, well, that doesn't fit with what we're doing here. I want to walk through the process to find out, well, if this is something we truly can do, or this is something that's going to help us, how do we make it happen? So I'm not saying, I'll never commit to saying, yeah, we're going to be able to do this, but I always want to give the best effort to do so, because I believe that's my job as an administrator, is to help find the best way to accomplish our goal and to improve our students' education and their future.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will find that extremely helpful. So now we have a few minutes left. So let's jump into lightning round, leadership and practice. I'll ask you a few questions. So Paul, one word to describe your leadership style.
Supportive.
Great. Best piece of advice you received as a new administrator?
Someone else's anxiety is not your. I'm trying to word this the right way. Someone else, just because somebody else needs something now, doesn't mean you have to give it to them then. You go through your processes, make sure everything is accomplished the right way.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Like something urgent for somebody else is not urgent necessarily. It could be very important for you, but not necessarily urgent.
Right, yeah. But don't just rush through what you're doing just to accommodate them.
Yeah, makes sense. Favorite tool or system for tracking student progress?
I hate to say it, but I still like to see our ACT scores. I hate to admit it, but I like looking at the sub scores in our ACT stuff a lot. So,
One change you made that has had the biggest impact on teacher effectiveness?
I think here at St. Patrick, the biggest thing we've changed that's really helped enhance their effectiveness is before I took over, they had a lot of requirements. Like every class had to have if two different people were teaching the same science class, they had to have the same number of assessments. They had to do all the same things, and not every teacher is the same. It was, so we did away with that. You obviously have to hit the same standards, but how you do that is how you do it. We're not going to legislate how people teach. So giving teachers the freedom to be their own professionals is, I really believe that invigorated some of them.
Cool. What gives you the most confidence about the future of Catholic education?
Just seeing the amount of kids that actually are living their faith, and then conversely, and also seeing them when they're actually at mass without their parents or without me or whatever else. The fact that they're actually taking what they're learning and living it.
Great. Cool. So, so actually, that kind of brings us to, I would say, towards the end of most of the questions. I'll just go over like a quick recap. So, thanks, Paul, for joining us for this exciting episode. We talked a lot about your experience, essentially how faith-based or mission-based initiatives actually are the focus of your leadership, and how you are actually helping both teachers and students incorporate those practices along with the education system and academic standards. Some of the how the school has grown and systems that you have been able to put in to make sure that the school will have sustainable success over the years, and then finally a lot of good advice for young teachers as well as administrators. So thanks for being here, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Have a story, question, or insight from your own classroom or campus? We would love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in to the Magna AI podcast. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube and learn more at magnaeducation.ai. Because when we support teachers with the right tools, we unlock what's possible for every learner.